an infinite amount of cash at the Federal Reserve. There is an infinite amount of cash at the Federal Reserve. There is an infinite amount of cash at the Federal Reserve.
Good morning, Bitcoin. My name is Thomas Hunt, and today is Sunday, May 10th, 2020. The price of Bitcoin is down 11% in the last 24 hours, with a last of 8,676, a high of 9,787, and a low of 8,101. Volume is incredibly high for a Sunday, with 23,016 Bitcoins trading hand. Margin longs continue to lead with 81% of the market heading that direction. The halving is currently scheduled for May the 11th at 4:07 p.m. in just 189 blocks. Check out the World Crypto Network. We've got 2 videos going again this morning. You can just pause this video, switch over to the Lightning Sprint. Check it out. We've got the Lightning Network Sprint Day 2 live from the Bitcoin Lightning Network. Check out what's going on with all the new Lightning Network projects right here on the World Crypto Network. Just a little bit of an echo as I set up the chat. A good time to give us a thumbs up and a share. This is Sunday, and that means it's Big Book Day. Notice anything different about my background? Could it be a big book? Bring that a little closer to the camera. Just like so many of this Big Book Day, it's another Taschen book. Yes, the fine German printing house, Taschen means table, has printed yet another great book. I think it was just a few weeks ago I showed you the Stanley Kubrick collection. Well, here it is. Taschen's own 2001 A Space Odyssey, a book about the movie all by itself. Expect screen caps and clips, articles and more as I flip through 2001 later on today's show. Oh, it's a teaser. Not yet. Not yet. Oh. But first, we want to start off like we always do with a couple of important and vital readings. Here we are from Taylor Swift, The New Romantics. The fans are the best part of this tour. They are the reason the shows are incredible. And I know those fans out there are all in. We are so bored. We are all so tired of everything. We wait for trains that just aren't coming. We show off our different scarlet letters. Trust me, mine is better. We're so young, but we're on the road to ruin. We play dumb, but we know exactly what we're doing. We cry tears of mascara in the bathroom. Honey, life is just a classroom. 'Cause baby, I could build a castle out of all the bricks they threw at me. And every day is like a battle, but every night with us is just like a dream. Baby, we're the new romantics. Come on, come along with me. Heartbreak is the national anthem. We sing it proudly. We're too busy dancing to get knocked off our feet. Baby, we're the new romantics. The best people in life are free. And of course, the classic Taylor Swift, Out of the Woods. Looking at it now, it all seems so simple. You were lying on your couch, I remember. You took a Polaroid of us, then discovered. The rest of the world was black and white, but we were in screaming color. And I remember thinking, are we out of the woods yet? Are we out of the woods yet? Are we out of the woods yet? Are we out of the woods? Are we in the clear yet? Are we in the clear yet? Are we in the clear yet? In the clear yet? Good. Are we out of the woods yet? Are we out of the woods yet? Are we out of the woods yet? Are we out of the woods? Are we in the clear yet? Are we in the clear yet? Are we in the clear yet? In the clear yet? Good. Are we out of the woods? Looking at it now, last December, we were built to fall apart, then fall back together. Your necklace hanging from my neck, the night we couldn't quite forget when we decided to move the furniture so we could dance. Baby, like we stood a chance. Two paper airplanes flying, flying, flying. And I remember thinking, are we out of the woods yet? Are we out of the woods yet? Are we out of the woods? Are we in the clear yet? Are we in the clear yet? Are we in the clear yet? In the clear yet? Good. Are we out of the woods yet? Are we out of the woods yet? Are we out of the woods yet? Are we out of the woods? Are we in the clear yet? Are we in the clear yet? Are we in the clear yet? In the clear yet? Good. Are we out of the woods? Remember when you hit the brakes too soon? 20 stitches in the hospital room. When you started crying, baby, I did too. But when the sun came up, I was looking at you. Remember when we couldn't take the heat? I walked out and said, I'm setting you free. But the monsters turned out to be just trees. And when the sun came up, you were looking at me. You were looking at me. You were looking at me. I remember. Oh, I remember. Are we out of the woods yet? Are we out of the woods yet? Are we out of the woods yet? Are we out of the woods? Are we in the clear yet? Are we in the clear yet? Are we in the clear yet? In the clear yet? Good. Are we out of the woods yet? Are we out of the woods yet? Are we out of the woods yet? Are we out of the woods? Are we in the clear yet? Are we in the clear yet? Are we in the clear yet? Good. I'm not sure we're out of the woods yet. I'm not sure that we're out of the woods. Checking out the 2020 reading challenge over at Goodreads. Looks like I won. Victory! It was a low goal. It was a low goal. But it helps to have sometimes a low goal so you can hit it and just celebrate. I was talking this morning on Twitter about my news and notes and highlights from my exciting Amazon Kindle. Unfortunately, Amazon Kindle has locked my news and notes and highlights inside of this horrible interface. And they've not included a post all highlights button, because basically I don't mind if you read all the little highlights that I made from a book. Actually, that's why I made them, so that I could read them and others could read them and they could be shared. And again, these are only for books that I've purchased through Amazon. Books that you've sent to your Kindle in other ways. Amazon just hides your notes. It's a very anti-academic thing to do. I find it very unfriendly. I don't even know how to get to my news and notes from the other books. And it's too bad because a lot of the other books are the best ones, like Fall by Neil Stephenson. But the idea for today is kind of a laid-back Sunday show. We're just going to kick it with some news and some notes. Well, not some news, just notes and highlights, really. Really highlights. It's really important when you read a book to highlight the good parts. That way, if you ever want to read it again, you can skip straight to those good parts. One of the things I like to do on a normal book is to use a post-it flag. If you haven't seen them, maybe you don't work in the legal field, but they're these great little plastic sticky things you can put on the side of your book, and it doesn't wreck or ruin the book. Worst case scenario, times are tough, you need some more money. You can go through like I did and take pictures of all your notes in the book, remove the Kindle, the little post-it flags, and then sell the book. So they're very good. They're non-destructive. But also I've heard a lot of arguments for more destructive notes and highlighting inside of books. Certainly great authors' books that have been written in or collector's items, and a lot of people just swear by this idea of putting the notes in there. I think definitely at the very least, highlighting the good sections. When I come back to a book, what's great about the ones that have the flags in them is I know right away to go to the good sections. Like several of my Bukowski poetry books have flags, several of them don't. The ones that have flags are more valuable. They're a consumer object. Anyone could buy them at Amazon for $10 a piece, shipped to you tomorrow. But the one that I have with my flags in it, that's unique. So no real plan for this. We're just going to go through and share my highlights, both sharing as pushing the buttons that make them share, and sharing occasional readings with you and maybe discussing them. The first book I'm going to share my highlights from is Moby Dick by Herman Melville. What of it if some old hunks of a sea captain orders me to get a broom and sweep down the decks? What does that indignity amount to, weighed, in the scales of the New Testament? Do you think the Archangel Gabriel thinks anything the less of me because I promptly and respectfully obey that hunks in particular instance? Who ain't a slave? Tell me that. The universe is finished. The copstone is on. And the chips were carted off 1,000,000 years ago. But faith, like a jackal, feeds among the tombs, and even from these dead doubts, she gathers her most vital hope. So it looks like I'm going to be the winner on this. Oh, wait, no, 94. This guy's got 32 notes and 94 highlights. He loves Moby Dick. 63 highlights, 83 highlights. I'm going to be in the top 5, which sounds nice. So here it is. I have 71 highlights on Moby Dick. Make of them visible, huzzah. Postmortal. Oh, I really enjoyed this book. It's too bad I don't have any highlights. I'm not sure why that is. Maybe it was a sample. Maybe I read another version. I'm not sure. But this was a great book by Drew McGarry, who's actually a sports writer for Deadspin back in the day. And this was a book about kind of the opposite of what's going on now. But what if everyone could suddenly live forever? You get the shot. Pretty much everyone can get the shot. The shot's $20 at the store. You freeze. You don't grow anymore. So it's a big question mark as to where you want to stop the clock. A lot of people who might have stopped the clock early on, not so great. But, so stopping the clock's amazing. And basically the world starts to deal with overpopulation and boredom. And no one knows what to do now that they can live forever. They don't have any motivation. So check out The Postmortal by Drew McGarry. Sorry, I don't have any notes or highlights. This is a book I read a long, long time ago. Not really a full book, more like an article. It's called Secret Money, Living on Bitcoin in the Real World by Kashmir Hill. Classic book. Looks like no one has shared their notes or highlights yet, so I would be the first. Let's read a few of Kashmir Hill's highlights. Everyone's kicking the tires on the currency, says Brewster. Whether it turns out to be the World Wide Web or Friendster, we'll see, he says. I like Bitcoin because it's not owned by anyone. And of course, that would be Brewster Kahle, the founder of the Internet Archive. Pretty neat. But the dream of Bitcoiners is that their currency could become universally accepted at some point in the future. That dream is a ways off and relies on the realization of another one, a world with Wi-Fi everywhere. I think we got that. I think we're definitely getting that. That's happening. But it may not be that simple. At the time of this writing, with Bitcoin valued at $1,000, those cupcakes actually cost me $560. Kashmir introduced to the idea of using Bitcoin, but not rebuying Bitcoin. If you just rebuy it, you could always have around the same amount. The meeting leaves me feeling even more like I've spent the last week in a Neil Stephenson novel. Great reference here, of course, Snow Crash one of the most influential books. Hey, here it is. 2 lines later, there it is. Shortly before embarking on my week of Bitcoin, I read Neil Stephenson's Snow Crash, a 1992 novel that predicted virtual worlds and ideas that spread through society like computer viruses. Snow Crash, fantastic book, definitely worth reading. And now I share my highlights for Secret Money, Living on Bitcoin in the Real World by Kashmir Hill. Thank you, Kashmir. Let's get 3 more. Here we go. Candide by Voltaire, The Dude Abides, the Coen brothers and the making of the Big Lebowski, and Dear Mr. Rogers, Does It Ever Rain in Your Neighborhood? Letters to Mr. Rogers. Pangloss was a professor of metaphysico-theological cosmology. He proved admirably that there is no effect without a cause, and that, in this best of all possible worlds, the Baron's castle was the most magnificent of castles, and his lady the best of all possible baronesses. For those of you who haven't read Candide by Voltaire, it's a real classic, very accessible, doesn't show at all that it was written 200 years ago, something like that. It's a true classic. Voltaire, a man with one name, not unlike Madonna or Cher, but this man very deserving of going by one name if that's what he wants to go by. Candide is a great story of Pangloss and the title character Candide, who live in this fantastic castle, and everything is good. It's kind of like the Buddha in Siddhartha, right? Everything is good at the beginning. It is the best of all possible worlds. But spoiler alert, stand by. I'm going to probably spoiler alert most of these books, but I'll try to do it in a nice way, not just revealing endings. But again, this is a pretty classic of English literature, French literature, really, if you want to go down to it. But yeah, you should read it. They go out into the world. They're forced out into the world, just like the hobbits, just like the Buddha, just like everyone. You're forced out into the world. Can't stay in the womb forever, right? Maybe it seems really nice, but got to go out there. It's Mother's Day. So they're forced out in the world. All kinds of horrible things happen to them. All kinds of their ideas are tested, and they travel around, and horrors happen to them and to others. And then in the very end, they come back home. And the kind of the message without spoiler alert again, but this is Candide by Voltaire. So I'm going to say Three Musketeers in a minute too. I don't know what to say about this. It's 100-year-old books, but the message of the book that Voltaire gives you is to tend your own garden. There's much out in the world, and Voltaire doesn't see the world perhaps as Tolkien sees it later on after World War I. He sees the world as generally kind of a bad place, I think. I think that he's kind of mocking Pangloss from the beginning. Pangloss is always, the world is the best of all possible worlds. Something bad happened to you, Candide. It must be for the good, and you're just not seeing it. You know, they've cut off your arm, but you're bleeding profusely. It's fantastic. Look at all the blood you're producing. It's wonderful. I think he's just making fun of him. I think that Voltaire is just a sly old cat telling you to stay at home and tend your own garden. Hundreds of years before this was a problem. And if I got the year wrong on this, I'm sorry, Voltaire. My apologies. I'm pretty sure I went to his gravesite. I'm pretty sure he's in the Pantheon in Paris in the basement with, Montesquieu and certainly the Curies and Dumas. Definitely Dumas. But here it is, 41 highlights. Looks like I actually am the winner on at least the free Kindle version of Voltaire. Of Candide by Voltaire. There's a dozen other versions, no doubt. So 41 news and notes visible. I like doing this with you guys. It's kind of fun. And there's lots more quotes from Candide. I didn't read that many. But here's a little bit from The Dude Abides. Big Lebowski, one of my favorite movies. Let's just find a random quote. Oh, I love this. This is a good one. It says, "The dude reminded me of Elliot Gould as Philip Marlowe in The Long Goodbye. The Dude Abides was not much different from Marlowe's refrain, 'It's okay with me.'" As I mentioned it to Joel, he said that The Long Goodbye is his favorite Altman movie. Ethan said, yeah, curry brand cat food, curry brand. This is kind of our long goodbye, and I want to give a huge shout out to The Long Goodbye. If you haven't seen it, Elliot Gould, as they say, plays Philip Marlowe, but he's kind of transformed. He's not Philip Marlowe of Humphrey Bogart in the 20s and 30s. He's in the 1960s now. He's dealing with all these hippies and these star childs and these wild kids. And sure, there's a murder and a kidnapping and all the kind of, Philip Marlowe plots that you expect. But it's just so great to see this laid-back detective, very much a early prototype of the dude. If you like Big Lebowski and you haven't seen The Long Goodbye, go rent or whatever you do these days, get the videotape for The Long Goodbye. It's a great movie. I'm not going to spoil it or anything, but yeah, it's just fantastic. Check out The Long Goodbye. It seems the Coens were also working on Elmore Leonard's yet-to-be-published novel Cuba Libre for Universal, though they had no plans to direct it. I'm pretty sure I've got that novel. I've read it. Joaquin Phoenix showed up one day, a short, friendly kid dressed in black. I imagined him as a gothic Brant. Used the Thomas Guide, a thick book of maps that was essential to navigating L.A. Joel and Ethan called it the Schmuck Guide. And the name of the production company for the movie was Bitter Creek, a reference to the television show Branded. Pretty cool. Little quotes there from the Coen brothers. And with 53 highlights, I win handily over 16 highlights by the other players. Visible. Enjoy my highlights, Internet. Mr. Rogers. Does it ever rain in your neighborhood? Letters to Mr. Rogers. Sometimes, when I'm working on a script or composing a song, writing flows easily, but there are lots of times where it doesn't. It's probably true that all writers have frustrating and discouraging moments. Sometimes it helps me to get away from the work by taking a walk, sitting in a quiet room, listening to music, talking with a friend. Sometimes I just go over to the piano and play out my feelings through music. That kind of break seems to nourish me, and I can come back renewed. But in real life, there are no good guys who are always good, and there are no bad guys who are always bad. Most people try to be good, but they do bad things once in a while. Some children like to pretend about getting rid of the bad guys. Dear Mr. Rogers, thank you for telling me robots don't have feelings. In fact, he was so upset that he wished he were a machine because machines don't have feelings. Guns seem to confer a kind of superpower because they can make things happen at a distance, as though a person's arms were enormously long. In fact, it's so natural to feel two ways about the same person or thing that there's even a word for that feeling. That word is ambivalent. So great stuff from Mr. Rogers. Looks like I'm the only person who highlighted and enjoyed this book on the Kindle. It was fun. I got it for pretty cheap, and it was a nice, easy read. I'm going to make my 11 highlights visible. Huzzah. And here we go. Complete stories by Rudy Rucker. I don't think there's going to be any highlights. And collected essays. I bought these more to kind of support Mr. Rucker, and because they're very anthology, right? They're a deep collection of essays. They're a long collection of stories. I don't know when I plan to read all these things, but I'm always buying anthologies and things like that. I don't know what they're for. I've also got Malcolm Gladwell, David and Goliath. That was a good one. And Presenting to Win, The Art of Telling Your Story. So we are branching out a little from fiction here. It's not just fiction. Other than I did read a couple of these complete stories. There is, in principle, no reason why it should not be sunny every day. Indeed, it is logically possible to argue that it rains only because people believe it to be raining. Fact, in Waikato, Minnesota, there is precipitation 227 days of the year. Before too long, I thought I had determined the reason for this. All of the citizens of Waikato, even the faculty members, watch television weather reports every evening. These reports almost always predict rain or snow. It seemed obvious to me, in my isolation, that if the weather reports could be stopped, then it would not rain so often. I tried unsuccessfully to gather signatures for a petition. I went to the TV studio and complained. Finally, I forced my way into the studio one evening and interrupted the weather report to state my case. "Tomorrow it will be sunny," I cried. "If only you will believe." The next day it was sunny, but I was out of a job and in a mental institution. So there you go. Great little story from Rudy Rucker. I don't remember if it was part of a larger story or anything like that, but just great. What a little clip to give you kind of some of Rucker's humor and his lightness with the word. If you haven't read Rudy Rucker, he wrote a great series called Software, Hardware, something like that. And they're just great. It's all about computers and interfaces and computers getting inside your brain and your brain getting inside computers and back and forth and vice versa. And he's just a great scientific thinker. And he's also a professor. A friend of mine actually got to study under Rudy Rucker, and I thought it was the coolest thing. And I tried to go to several of his readings, but I never made it out, and I didn't get his signature. But he's still kicking around. He's in the Bay Area. He's in my old hood. But yeah, so it'd be great to see Rudy Rucker. He's a class act. So here it is, four visible notes. I have to make the book on a shelf. Let's say I'm currently reading, because it's an endless anthology. So do the best I can. Oh, a couple of highlights from his collected essays. So I feel good. I got my $5 out of these books. I flipped them open at least once. Checking in with the price of Bitcoin. The price of Bitcoin is now down 13.41% in the last 24 hours, with a last of 8,469, a high of 9,787, and a low of 8,101. Volume continues to climb incredibly high for a weekend, with 23,696 Bitcoins trading hands. Still margin long, 81%. Halvening in just a few days, May 11th or 12th. Keeping an eye on it. And that's $1 for 11,790 Satoshis. Looking like a buying opportunity if you thought the 10,000 was too expensive. Or perhaps it will go lower. Of course, we all know the Magic 8 Ball predicted this yesterday on the Bitcoin group. A few days ago on Friday, we showed you live in real time. We asked the 8 Ball, will the price of Bitcoin be higher next week? The ball said, very doubtful. Very doubtful, said the ball. And now back to Rudy Rucker. As long as you labor under the feeling that you are the only weirdo, then you feel weak and apologetic. Skipping ahead. What's good about punk is that it makes all of us question our comfortable attitudes and assumptions. Wait, look at that last sentence and you can see I'm 40. How complacently I slipped the us in there, trying to co-opt the revolution. How Life magazine of me. How plastic. How bullshit. What's good about punk is that it's fast and dense. It has a lot of information. It's not, who do you know? It's, how fast are you? How dense? It's not, do you talk like my old friends? It's, what do you have to say? It's not, is this comfortable? It's, is this interesting? I kind of feel like he's talking about the Ramones there. So many of the Ramones tracks are these little 2-minute, 3-minute songs. You can barely catch the words, but the catchy chorus stays with you all day. So many punk songs are like that, loud and fast. And like he's saying, maybe that's all you get. You just get the loudness. You just get the fastness. Maybe later you hear the words or you hear the message. It has an effect. But it's an interesting idea there about punk rock. I'm glad I highlighted it years ago. And I'm glad to share it now with the Goodreads Amazon audience. Oh, I have to add that to a shelf too. All right. Goodreads used to be its own independent website. Then, of course, it was... Oh, I wonder if it added my other ones. It was an independent website. Then, of course, it was purchased by Amazon. No, I didn't. So, bad on me. All right. Got to be really complicated to do this. They didn't just make a make all visible button. But here are some quotes from David and Goliath, underdogs, misfits, and the art of battling giants. Giants are not what we think they are. The same qualities that appear to give them strength are often the sources of great weakness. We need a better guide to facing giants. The Philistines had saw their blah, blah, blah. So he's talking about David and Goliath. And one of the points right here we go. Here's the killer quote. Goliath has about as much chance against David as any Bronze Age warrior with a sword would have had against an opponent armed with a .45 automatic pistol. One of the great things about the David-Goliath story, especially according to Malcolm Gladwell, is that Goliath was hopefully outmatched. Goliath, the monster with his giant sword, his giant shield, and his giantness, preferred to fight up close. Goliath would tear you apart if he could get his hands on you. You had to be in reach, right? His sword was long, but it wasn't that long, right? Meanwhile, David, light armor, light weapons, light kid, right, has the advantage, strangely, because of the evolution of weaponry. This new at the time weapon for David, the sling, and a handful of well-chosen rocks, killed Goliath. Easily, instantly. Goliath had no chance. And I've often thought this book and this idea is a good metaphor for Bitcoin. Bitcoin is lightly armored. Bitcoin is small. Bitcoin is maneuverable. The central bank is big. The Federal Reserve is slow. They're a heavy building. Their presses only move so fast. Bitcoin is David. It could kill Goliath. And lots of other quotes. Looks like for some reason I'm getting double quotes. Well, some of them. Maybe there's only some things that I highlighted twice. And 92 news and notes made visible. Trying to determine if these background noises are just background noises or something I need to investigate. Oh, well, let's just keep moving. Presenting to win, the art of telling your story. I remember I read this book trying to improve my PowerPoints and presentations, improve my communication style. Instead, they should be following Ludwig Mises van der Rohe's surgically appropriate advice. Less is more. Can't say enough how less is more. I'm always taking things out of things. Whenever I'm editing, obviously, I do 5 to 10 editing passes pretty easily over anything that I'm going to write. This does make writing harder, but it makes the output better. Okay, people are randomly screaming. All right, let's see. We're going to have to go to a pause, I think. Let's see. World Crypto Network. What's going on the other channel on the World Crypto Network? We're going to take just a 5-minute break. And we're going to be
order to
right back.
Like pinpoint on a map exactly where you are. So instead of scrolling coordinates, you show, I think it was 4 or 5 words out of the mnemonic word list, and then you have the precise location where you are at. Right? And this was, again, like very, very awesome feature, like makes transferring coordinates so much more easy and trivial. And it still can be done with open source data, and it's a project born out of open source ethos.
You can get that much data out of 4 or 5 words?
Yeah, it was like, I'm somewhat making these numbers up, but the gist is correct. With 4 words, we had like an area of, I think, 1 square meter or something like this accuracy.
Wow.
But then with the 5th word, you have like pinpoint accuracy, like the size of a penny, like a square centimeter or something. So I was surprised on this vary too. But the cool thing is that the word list is very, very large. I think it's 2,048 words or something like this. So it's quite a lot of entropy that we have here available. And then you use that 4 times, you get quite good accuracy. But I was surprised on that too. It's a bit unintuitive.
Yeah, I really think we need to move more. I mean, for humans to use mnemonics to remember passwords or anything else is just so much better than one-word cryptic passwords. First of all, words just should never be used as a password, but phrases are wonderful, and they're so much easier to remember.
Oh yes, remember and to transcribe, right? So for example, you have your password written down somewhere, or you use a password manager or something on the one laptop, and you need to type it into the other laptop. If it's gibberish, like 7, 8, exclamation point, brackets, semicolon, stuff like that, you're gonna sit there for minutes trying to figure it out, especially if it's a long and secure password, right? So currently you're incentivized to use short passwords that are easy memorable, right? But that's fundamentally bad. So if you use a password manager that gives you cryptographically secure random number generated passwords that are represented in mnemonic phrases, like if you have 6 mnemonic words or 12 mnemonic words, that's unbrute forceable if it was generated with a truly secure random number generator, right? But it's much easier to transcribe. So this is for sure the way to go.
I mean, 2,000 whatever to the power of 4 is just a ridiculous amount of entropy. It really is. Yeah. So I don't know what else we can talk about here. I think we've sort of wrapped it up. I'm sorry, we're just, unless you've got something more to say, just checking through the chat here to see if there's anything else.
Well, Josh, I mean, one project that we did talk a bit about yesterday, but not really that much, is yours, Voltaire, right? So as I teased yesterday, you were one of the very first exchanges using the Lightning Network. So back in the early days, how did you do that? What was the goal?
Man, the goal was basically to show that the Lightning Network could be used on a professional platform, and it was also for me, because we exchanged between Bitcoin and gold, and there was no one else doing that at the time. I wanted to find a way where we could not have people trusting our hot wallet, but could take an order out of the order book by just basically doing a Lightning payment. And so this was why Lightning was so interesting. So I got my brother, who is CTO, and he's an amazing technician and engineer, and said, we have to do this. We have to show that this is ready, sort of, and very reckless, of course, but it's kind of ready to do something. And so he sat down and we hacked our way through this. We used LND right in the beginning. I mean, this was really bare bones at the stage, and we got it working. And of course, the Bitcoin magazine, a bunch of press picked up on it because we were the first to do this. And it really took off. We were the largest node in the network for a while in terms of the capacity, and then we because the network was so young, we had to then shut it down and try to other stuff, and then we rebuilt Voltaire. But as an experiment, it really showed the beauty of exchanges using this stuff. Because if you're a market taker and you see an order in the order book, why should you have to trust our hot wallet? Why should you have to load Bitcoin onto our exchange, sitting in a hot wallet, and then take the order? Why not just say, put an order in and say, okay, I want, whenever my Bitcoin comes through, I want you to take at this price. So you just throw up a QR code, bloom, it took the order and bought physical gold right there. And that was for me such an aha moment when that first transaction came through. I really felt like we've it was worthwhile going through the big SegWit wars of 2016, 17, or whenever it was, and that we finally got what the network needed, and that's a proper scaling solution. So it's interesting. I mean, I'm not totally unsold on people trying other things. I like the fact that there's other people trying bigger blocks and all this stuff. This is the great part. But I really feel like the Lightning Network is the scaling solution. Second layer stuff. If you look at any protocol, it's all about second layers. And for us to be able to showcase that was a real highlight in one of the things that I've done in life to really show that can work. We did launch Voltaire 2.0, and on the roadmap is the Lightning Network again, of course, but we just have to build out a few other things first. But we'll be back with the Lightning Network again, and this time it's so much better. I mean, it's really easy to set up nowadays. Back then it was quite difficult, especially trying to rebalance and all these things that we were doing. But yeah, I feel that other exchanges need to do it now, need to implement it as soon as they've got some capacity, because once the halvening does happen, and all it takes is another full bull run to start kicking off, and we will see full blocks again. We will see people pissed off because they can't get transactions out there. And we're ready now. The Lightning Network is ready to take on enterprise, and so enterprise should be implementing it, absolutely.
And we're just going to have to do a quick end to this show. My brother's not feeling well. He's thrown out his back. So go down and try to help him. Just wanted to show you really quick. It's Big Book Day. We only had 5 minutes left in the show anyway, or something like that anyway. So we'll have more Kindle news and notes, maybe on next Big Book Day. So this big book, surprisingly, opens like this. So long way. So you can have the long picture of, that's the circular running track that they built so that the guy could run around it. It was actually, I think it was functional. I think he had to actually physically run around in a circle while the thing moved. The book is filled with huge shots like that. You can see how it was a long ways book, but it's become huge, just gigantic pictures, a beautiful sideways book, lots of pop-out pictures and posters, even bigger than what I'm able to show you here. Here's a little bit of a pop-out, so you can see just the size of this 2001 book. Truly a magnificent big book, again by Taschen. They make the best big books around. So thanks for checking out the show. We'll be back again tomorrow with another episode of the Thomas Hunt Show or something else here on the World Crypto Network. Be sure to check out our other channel, the live show right now from the Lightning Network Sprint Day 2. Until next time, bye-bye.